The two-headed giant blows 5 magic bean seeds into the river. The next second, the beans miraculously sprouted from the ground. The huge vines spread endlessly toward the sky. At the two-headed giant's command, countless giants behind him frantically climbed up toward the vines. They aimed to change the vines' growth downwards, with the countless giants suppressing them. The vines soon became their bridge to earth. The giant, imprisoned for thousands of years, can finally return to the human world. It turns out that a long time ago, some monks, to see the true face of God, they used magic peas to grow a vine leading them to the heavens. But when they climbed up to the sky, they found that there was no God up there. All that was waiting for them was a horrible horde of giants. The vicious giants descended through the vine and went on a killing spree, and they stormed the castle and plundered the palace for gold and treasure. To add to the horror, the giants loved to feast on humans. For a while, the human race suffered. Only when the monks mixed the giants' hearts with magic and charms could they create a magical crown that had never been seen before. When the king wore this divine crown, all the giants fell to their knees in submission. The king immediately ordered them to return to the land where they had grown up, which ended the human catastrophe. He then ordered the vine leading to the heavenly realm to be cut off, imprisoning them forever. The remaining 5 magical beans were to be kept in the king's safekeeping. The beans and crown were buried with his body until the king's death and returned to the dust. Time passed, and the story soon became a legend. As a child, Jack was born into a poor family. He grew up obsessed with the legendary tale of the magic bean giant. He grew up and was placed in foster care with his uncle when his father died of illness. To fix the leaky house, his uncle sent him to town to sell his wagon for some money. He was captivated by a circus show on the side. He sneaks in to watch the show. As he was watching, he suddenly noticed some drunken men molesting a pretty girl. Jack can't stand the sight of it and immediately steps in to stop it. After taking a punch, Jack inexplicably finds everyone in the room on their knees in front of him. When he turned around and looked up, he realized that a 5 long knife was already at his neck. So the girl was the princess. By now, the palace guards had already picked her up. As he watched the princess leave, Jack felt very uncomfortable. When he came out, the carriage was stolen and only one white horse was left. On his way back, he was stopped by a sneaky monk. He was offered 10 times the price for his horse, but he doesn't have any money with him now. As a gesture of good faith, he gave Jack 5 peas as collateral. He told him to bring the peas to the monastery in return for a large sum of money. He told him not to let the peas meet the water, or something terrible would happen. Little did Jack know that the peas in his hand were the same 5 magical beans buried with the old king. The monk had previously sneaked into the palace and stolen the beans. When the royal minister returned to the house, he found it in disarray. He panicked and picked up the book on the floor, only to find that the monks had stolen the beans. Then he looked at the broken flower pot on the floor, but luckily the crown was still there, so he ordered all the gates to be blocked, and the monk was to be arrested. At this point, Jack had no idea that the monk was a wanted man. When he looked up, the monk was already riding away on his white horse. Uncle was furious when he learned that Jack had traded his carriage for a few peas. He threw the 5 peas to the ground in anger. When Jack bends down to pick them up, one of them falls down a crack into the floor. Little did he know that this would bring him terrible bad luck. On the other hand, back in the palace, the princess finds her father to negotiate. She says she doesn't want to marry the man the king has appointed to marry her, who is more than 10 years older than her. But the king would not let her off the hook and decisively refused her request. The princess did not want to become a victim of politics, so she changed into civilian clothes and slipped out of the palace. She had hoped to ride out into the countryside to vent her frustrations, but instead, it started to rain heavily. In the middle of nowhere, there is only one farmhouse with a light on. To escape the rain, the princess had to put herself down and knock on the farmer's door. Coincidentally, this was Jack's house. Jack recognized her immediately as the princess he had met during the day. Jack, who had been single for 20 years, was overwhelmed by the beautiful woman who had come to his door. He was so excited that he didn't notice that something big was about to happen to his home. At this moment, the rainwater leaking from the roof dripped down the cracks and onto the beans. The beans are quickly rooted and sprouted by the moisture. The next moment, the whole house suddenly shook. A huge vine instantly broke through the house and grew wildly upwards. At this moment, the princess was immobilized by the fallen table. Jack rushed to rescue her, but another vine bounced out of the house. The house and the princess are lifted into the air by the vine. Jack grabs the house at the critical moment, but it was too late to rescue the princess. The house was already thousands of meters off the ground. The princess had to open the door and try to pull him back inside, but unfortunately, the planks of wood under his feet suddenly broke, and Jack nearly fell. But in the end, he failed to grab the princess's bracelet and fell. As he fell, the green leaves of the vine reduced his speed, and he landed safely. When he woke up the next day, the king came with an army of guards to demand his life. Jack told the king what had happened to him last night. A huge vine towering above them all appeared. To find his daughter, the king immediately ordered a top climbing team. They were told to climb to the top of the vine to rescue the princess, and as the only witness, Jack took on the task. They climbed from daylight to late at night without seeing the top. During this time, the storm and the lightning were coming at them. Some of them couldn't hold on any longer. They cut the safety ropes that held them together to lighten the load, and the unlucky soldiers below experienced a funeral in the air. After much hard work, they finally made it to the top and found an island in the sky suspended in the clouds. At this point, they had no idea that this was the legendary territory of the giants. On the way out, the princess's fiancé, Roderick, suddenly stops Jack with a knife. He guessed that the rest of the beans must be hidden on Jack's body. Jack had to give them to him to save his life. Roderick asked him not to tell anyone. After they left, it turned out that Jack hadn't given him all the magic beans but had secretly kept one in his necklace. They followed the clues left by the princess deep into the forest. Here, by some miracle, they found a flock of sheep. Hungry, Jack and another man immediately went to catch the sheep but stepped into a trap. A huge rock came crashing down from the top of the hill, leaving them dangling in midair. The two men drew their daggers and frantically cut the rope. The captain, Elmont, who was rescuing them, suddenly noticed something unusual. Countless crows seemed to be frightened by something and pour out of the forest. At this point, the two men trapped in the net finally broke free, but a new and unknown risk is creeping up on them. The frightened team rushed to hide behind the trees. In the distance, a huge foot is slowly coming towards them. Jack has no time to hide, so he hides in the water. Everyone held their breath and didn't dare to make any noise. The giant stepped into the lake to check out the trap. From under the water, Jack saw that the giant had stuffed a sheep into his mouth. The team member turned his head to look, but he had revealed his whereabouts. When he turned around again, the giant had uprooted a huge tree. The terrified soldier fled frantically. The giant behind him took only 3 steps to reach him and slapped him unconscious. It was the first time the giant met a human in 1,000 years. He crouched down to his huge body, showing his big eyes and sniffing the man's scent with his huge nostrils. The giant picked him up and opened his mouth wide for a delicious meal. And just at the right moment, Elmont came to his rescue. He thrust his sword at the giant's feet, only to be kicked away by him. The damage was like an itch to the giant. The giant was pleased that the human had come to him of the accord, so he prepared to return to the lair to show off to his companions. Luckily, Jack was able to escape by hiding under the water. Jack quietly followed the giant on his way behind him, hoping to find an opportunity to rescue his team. When he made his way through the dense forest and into the open, he discovered that this was the legendary island of the giants. The other 3 members of the team, who had split up, came to the edge of the cliff with no way out. 2 of them had the plan to usurp the throne, so Roderick lies that he has seen the princess and tells his men to come and check the cliff. When the soldier weren't looking, Roderick pushed him off the cliff with one hand from behind. Because the fewer people knew about what he was about to do, the better it would be for him. While they were still feeling happy, another man was suddenly grabbed by the giant behind him and ate him. Then another giant climbed up from the cliff's edge to the shore. Roderick was surrounded by giants and had no way back. In a panic, he took a magic crown from his backpack. On the other hand, the princess is in a cage in the cave of the giants. A 2-headed giant was interrogating her about whether she had any more accomplices here, but the giant soon smelled that the princess was a descendant of the old king. The 2-headed giant told all the giants about it. To avenge their captivity by the old king, they decided to eat the princess. Just then, the giant, freshly laden with his harvest, returned to the cave. The 2-headed giant realized that the princess was not the only one who had come here. Angrily, he grabbed a soldier and interrogated him about how he had got here. The soldier would rather die than reveal the secret passage to the human world. As the 2-headed giant continued to interrogate another soldier, Roderick arrived with a magical crown. All the giants who saw it fell to their knees and worshipped him. This revealed his true purpose for being here. He wanted to use the magic crown to control all the giants and then use their power to return to Earth to defeat all the kingdoms and rule the world. At that moment, Jack followed them to the giant's lair, but the place was so heavily guarded that he had to hide and look for an opportunity. Then he inadvertently entered the giant's vault, which was piled high with gold. When he finally emerged, he was lost in a maze of pathways, just as he doesn't know which way to go. The sound of the princess calling for help comes from the distance. Jack followed quietly from behind. It turns out that this is the giant's kitchen. The giant cook sprinkled a handful of flour on Elmont and stuffed snot in his mouth. Elmont was then rolled up in the pastry as a meat pie. He was placed on the table with the two piglets, waiting to be put into the oven. At this moment, the princess smiled a long-awaited smile when she saw Jack coming quietly to the rescue. She told Jack to go ahead and rescue Elmont, who was about to be put into the oven. Jack made a gap in the pastry and gave him the dagger. The giant thrusts 3 large toothpicks into the meatloaf on the table. When it was Elmont's turn, fortunately the toothpick was stuck between his legs. He was then carried straight into the oven by the giant. At the critical moment, Jack crept up to the knife rack and waited for the right moment. The giant is chopping vegetables in a frenzy with his skilled knife skills. Then he opened the cage and placed the princess on the table. Just as the giant was about to slash at the princess, Jack quietly pulled out a 5 long cleaver from above the giant. He then picked up the knife, leaped down, and plunged it into the giant's back. The giant screamed in agony. He was killed when he accidentally hit the wall. And Jack became the first hero to kill the giant. The 3 of them didn't dare stop for a moment to leave the kitchen and plan their return to Earth. But when they arrived at the cliff's edge, they found a giant guarding the only way to the human world. As the 3 men discuss their plan, a beast suddenly flies over Jack. This gives Jack a sudden inspiration. He picked up a hornet's nest with a wooden stick. Elmont then carefully opened the giant's helmet. Immediately afterward, Jack placed the hornet's nest into the giant's helmet. After putting on the helmet, the 2 men quickly fled the area and waited for the rest of the show. A few moments later, the giant stood up and frantically slapped his helmet. After tossing and turning, he finally remembered to take off his helmet, but he didn't expect it, as a single bee flew in front of him and he dodged slightly but unexpectedly fell straight down the cliff. At this point, the last obstacle to returning to the human world was finally removed. Elmont said that Jack should take the princess first and that he should stay behind to deal with the traitor. The only way to prevent the giant from coming down to Earth again is to get the magic crown back. Meanwhile, a group of monks in the lower world was praying. Suddenly the giant, who had just fallen off a cliff, descended from the sky and crashed in front of them. Everyone was curious and came to watch. This proved that the existence of giants was not a legend. To prevent the human race from being attacked by giants again, the king decided to abandon the rescue of the princess. He ordered the bridge of vines to the sky to be cut down. The next day Roderick ordered all the giants to the edge of the cliff, preparing to wage war on humanity through this vine down to Earth. The captain who had stayed behind was hiding and was looking for an opportunity to attack him. At that moment, the 2-headed giant on the left noticed something unusual, but the giant on the right told him not to warn Roderick. At that moment, Elmont suddenly lunged from behind Roderick and dragged him into the cave. As the 2 of them scuffle, they accidentally drop other magic beans to the ground. The cunning giant general ordered his men to smash the boulders and block the cave's exit below. After several rounds of fighting, Elmont was pinned to the ground by Roderick. He has then kicked off the edge of the cliff. But the villain is always the one who talks too much and has to instigate a few words of nonsense at the right moment before he is ready to strike. Instead, he was stabbed in the back by Elmont. He shouts for the giant above to come to his rescue, but he was crushed to death by the boulder. The giant grabbed him with one hand and removed the magical crown from his head. He then placed it on his finger. With this crown, the 2-headed giant became the new ruler of the giants. By now, the soldiers on the ground had almost cut down the vines. Jack and the princess were returning when they noticed a movement on the ground. Soon the huge vine lost its balance and began to uproot itself. As the last roots were snapped, the huge vine that led to the heavens finally collapsed with a crash, and Elmont above grabbed the vine at the last moment and left the island. The giant let out a cry of rage as he watched the vine fall to earth. Just as the vine collapsed, Jack grabbed a vine with the princess in his arms and leaped to the ground. He seized the moment and leaped onto the hay before landing safely. The collapsed vine was now extending into the castle. The soldiers in the castle rang the alarm bell to evacuate the people. At the last moment, Elmont jumped into the river and escaped death. The king was surprised to see the princess back safe and sound. The king only offered Jack a generous reward for saving the princess, but as a father, the king thanked him anyway. For Jack, it was not the reward that he wanted, but by law, a princess could not marry a commoner. This made it impossible for 2 people who loved each other to be together. In fact, on their way back, they had established their love for each other. As they said goodbye, Jack gave the princess his treasured book of adventure stories, hoping she would always remember him. Just as Jack was looking at the princesses departing back with a sense of loss, the giant above him took a turn for the worse. The giant found the bag Roderick had left behind. Only then did he realize that it contained 5 magic beans, so he blew the 5 magic bean seeds into the river, nourished by the river water. The beans soon took root and sprouted. The next moment, 5 huge vines grew upwards from the ground. At the two-headed giant's command, countless giants behind them frantically climbed upwards toward the vines. A war between humans and giants broke out at this moment. They descended the vine, ready to wage war against the humans. Jack was feeding the horses when he suddenly spotted something different in the air in the reflection of the water trough. So he immediately went to the city to tell the king the news. The king was returning to the castle, completely unaware of the coming war. Jack passed by the monastery and had the monks ring the alarm bell. It was the first time the monastery had sounded a war alarm to humanity in 1,000 years. The king had yet to learn what the alarm bell meant. By the time Jack had caught up with the group, it was too late. The giants were rushing through the dense forest toward the humans. They were walking faster than the horses, closing the distance at once. The giants grabbed soldiers who fell behind and sent them flying hundreds of meters with their hammers. They burst into the crowd, trampling on human life. Another giant dismantles the windmill and throws it into the crowd. The moment it hit the ground, it knocked the king's crown straight off the ground. Fortunately, the vines in front gave them more time to escape. By now, the king's troops were close to the castle. The soldiers on the walls also noticed the crisis in the distance and immediately raised the alarm to evacuate the people. Elmont rushed to the walls, gathered all his men, and hastily prepared the castle. He ordered the guards to spill 5 tons of tar on the walls into the river, then had rows of soldiers above him light their rockets and draw their bowstrings. Everything was ready for the king to return to the city. At Elmont's command, the soldiers fired all their arrows into the river and set the tar alight. In a matter of moments, the lit tar spread throughout the moat. Before the giants could arrive, the soldiers struggled to pull up the drawbridge at the gates, but Jack, who was late to the party, did not follow. With the drawbridge about to close, Jack leaped onto the wooden bridge with all his might at this critical moment, but the two-headed giants in pursuit stalled the bridge from rising. The general immediately sent his archers to shoot arrows at the giant. The pained giant's hands let go, and he fell into the fire. The other giants who arrived saw their boss fall into the river but did not try to save him. No one could have imagined that the two-headed giant who had just fallen into the river had not perished, but was swimming quietly towards the city, deep under the water. But before the drawbridge could be fully closed, the giants launched a second attack. Then 2 huge iron hooks tightened their grip on the drawbridge. If the giants broke into the city, the consequences would be unthinkable. As more and more giants joined in, the drawbridge was completely tilted in favor of the giants. A powerful force destroys the human rope collection machine at once. As the giants were about to break through the walls, Elmont had to use the same method to hook the drawbridge. Then a tug-of-war ensued with the giants outside. As the humans sent all their troops to guard the gates, the giants sent another group of men to throw fire-bearing trees into the city. The burning trees came like balls of fire at the crowd of humans, disrupting the soldiers' formation. The gates were about to be breached by the giants. The king found the princess and told her to take Jack to his chambers. There was a secret passage to the monastery. Then let him light the beacon and seek other nations to come to his aid. The 2 men ran into the palace without delay, but then there was a sudden pounding under the floor, and it was the two-headed giant that had just fallen into the river. Another fierce battle is about to take place in the palace. Jack had to hide with the princess in the king's cloak, but the two-headed giant found them anyway. They tried desperately to escape, and the two-headed giant caught the princess on the way. Just as she was about to be eaten by the giants, Jack jumped down to save her, but he was caught too. In the nick of time, Jack remembered that he had a magic bean. He threw the bean into the two-headed giant's mouth. The vines sprouted from the giant's body. Meanwhile, the giants outside were about to invade the castle. Elmont and the king were ready for a duel. At that moment, the giant vines burst through the castle. The giants threw down their weapons and fell to their knees. It was Jack who appeared with the magic crown. Once again, the giants were defeated by the humans. And Jack and the princess lived happily ever after. Remember to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.